The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, which encompasses the boroughs of Manhattan and the Bronx in New York City, along with Dutchess, Orange, Putnam, Rockland, Sullivan, and Westchester counties. The office prosecutes cases involving violations of federal laws, and represents the interests of the United States government and its agencies in criminal and civil matters. The office investigates and prosecutes a broad array of criminal conduct, of every conceivable magnitude, even when the conduct arises in distant places. Today, the office is at the forefront of many important areas of criminal law enforcement, including terrorism, white-collar and cybercrime, mortgage fraud, public corruption, gang violence, organized crime, international narcotics trafficking and civil rights violations. Similarly, the office litigates among the most complex and significant civil cases the Department of Justice handles, from large affirmative civil fraud cases to cases in the environmental, healthcare, immigration, and bankruptcy areas, as well as cases implicating classified information.
May 23, 2024. Operators of nationwide sports and Pokemon trading card fraud arrested. Damian Williams, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, and James Smith, the Assistant Director in charge of the New York Field Office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, announced today the unsealing of an indictment charging Anthony Curcio, aka Brendan Woolley, and Iasif Bondarchuk, A/K/A Joe Bondarchuk, with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and wire fraud. The charges arise from the defendant's fraudulent scheme to defraud buyers and marketplaces to purchase sports and Pokemon trading cards at false and inflated prices by misrepresenting that low to mid-grade cards had received high-grade ratings from a reputable card authentication company, Company 1, thereby causing victims to pay more money for the cards than they otherwise would have. Curcio and Bondarchuk were arrested this morning and are expected to be presented today before a U.S. magistrate judge in the Western District of Washington. This case is assigned to U.S. District Judge Ronnie Abrams. According to the allegations in the indictment, from at least 2022 to May 2024, Curcio and Bondarchuk sold and attempted to sell fraudulent sports and Pokemon trading cards to victims across the country. In total, Curcio and Bondarchuk attempted to deprive victims of over $2 million through their sales and attempted sales by misrepresenting the grade of numerous trading cards. Sports and Pokemon trading cards containing the images of professional athletes and Pokemon can have considerable resale value depending on, among other things, their condition and authenticity. Company 1 is a prominent card authenticator and grader. For a fee, it verifies a card's authenticity, assesses its condition, and assigns it a numerical grade from 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest grade and 10 being the highest grade. The grade assigned is reflective of the card's comparative market value. After grading a card, Company 1 seals the card in a distinctive, tamper-resistant plastic case that encloses the card to preserve its condition and indicates its grade on an affixed label. The card grade assigned by Company 1 significantly impacts the market value of the card. As an example, among the cards that Curcio and Bondarchuk sold in connection with the scheme was a misrepresented 1986 Fleer Michael Jordan No. 57 rookie card, the 1986 MJ card. The 1986 MJ card graded as an 8 has an estimated market value of between $6,000 and $7,000. But this same card, when graded as a 10 by Company 1, has had an estimated market value of between approximately $185,000 and $203,000. In short, representations about Company 1's grade of the card go directly to the value of the card itself and the price at which the card can be bought and sold. In May 2022, Curcio advertised one version of the 1986 MJ card on an online marketplace based in Manhattan, the Manhattan Marketplace. Curcio advertised the 1986 MJ card as having a purported grade of 10 assigned by Company 1. In truth and in fact, Curcio knew that Company 1 had not assigned this grade to the card. To further make it appear that the 1986 MJ card had received a rating of 10 from Company 1, Curcio caused a purported Company 1 label to be included in the plastic case, along with a fraudulent barcode and certification number. Through the Manhattan Marketplace, Curcio and Bondarchuk sold various cards at inflated prices by falsely claiming the cards had been assigned higher ratings by Company 1 than was true. Curcio and Bondarchuk also sold and attempted to sell fraudulent cards at in-person card shops, auctions, and card shows. Curcio further sold and attempted to sell fraudulent cards through other online platforms using third-party sellers. When victims demanded refunds and confronted Curcio and Bondarchuk, including by showing them confirmations from Company 1 that they had misrepresented the grade of the cards they were selling, Curcio and Bondarchuk feigned ignorance and often refunded the victims. Yet, after being put on notice that the cards' grades and labels were fraudulent, Curcio and Bondarchuk repeatedly attempted to, and did, sell these very same cards to subsequent victims. Again with fraudulent labels showing an inflated grade from Company 1. Among the fraudulent cards that Curcio, Bondarchuk, and others sold and attempted to sell are a 1999 Pokemon Venusaur card and a 1999 Pokemon Charizard card. In July 2023, as part of a law enforcement undercover purchase of the above fraudulently misrepresented 1999 Pokemon Venusaur card for $10.50, a card which Bondarchuk had previously attempted to sell on an online marketplace, Curcio mailed the card to the undercover law enforcement purchaser in Manhattan after the undercover purchaser wired the money to a Curcio-controlled bank account. Curcio and Bondarchuk repeatedly used fake names and identities in order to conceal their involvement in the fraudulent scheme. For example, after a victim complained to Bondarchuk about his sales of fraudulent cards, including a Tom Brady rookie card, a John Elway rookie card, and various Michael Jordan cards, Bondarchuk gave the victim Curcio's phone number but falsely told the victim that the phone number belonged to another individual who, in reality, was a leader of the Hells Angels motorcycle ring. After another victim complained to Bondarchuk about his sales of fraudulent cards, including a 1968 Topps Nolan Ryan Jerry Koosman rookie card, Bondarchuk gave the victim Curcio's phone number but this time falsely told the victim that the phone number belonged to someone named John Steele. Last month, in April 2024, at a card show in New Jersey, Curcio gave a business card to a potential victim buyer, falsely claiming to be Brendan Woolley and listing, among other identifiers, a phone number and LinkedIn page purportedly belonging to Brendan Woolley. In truth and in fact, Curcio and not Brendan Woolley created and operated the LinkedIn page and controlled the phone number. In furtherance of the fraud, Curcio ordered from an online marketplace various items needed to create forged card cases and labels. The items included various card grading cases, thermal transfer barcode labels, a magnifier loop optical glass, a handheld inkjet printer, a lock cutting kit, an electric grinding pen, an abrasive buffer and polishing wheel, an abrasive and bristle brushes, and drill bits designed for engraving. Curcio, 43, of Redmond, Washington, and Bondarchuk, 37, of Lake Stevens, Washington, are each charged with one count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and one count of wire fraud, each of which carries a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison. The maximum potential sentences are prescribed by Congress and are provided here for informational purposes only, as any sentencing of the defendants will be determined by the judge. U.S. Attorney Damian Williams said, quote, as alleged, Anthony Curcio and Iosif Bondarchuk carried out a brazen nationwide fraud scheme involving valuable sports and Pokemon trading cards to deceive buyers and marketplaces, ultimately amassing over $2 million in fraudulent and attempted sales. Curcio and Bondarchuk allegedly sold and tried to sell at inflated prices cards of various professional athletes, including, among others, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Nolan Ryan, Larry Bird, Julius Erving, and Magic Johnson, as well as various valuable Pokemon cards. Thanks to our law enforcement partners, the dedicated prosecutors of this office, and the many victims who came forward, this alleged fraud has had its last dance. Our message today is clear. No matter what product you are selling, if you try to deceive the public to make money, you will be brought to justice. End quote. May 23, 2024. USPS mail carrier arrested for targeting victims on mail route and fraud and identity theft scheme. Damian Williams, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, and Matthew Modafferi, the Special Agent in charge of the Northeast Area Field Office of the United States Postal Service, Office of Inspector General, USPS OIG, announced today that Tamika Babulal, A/K/A Tamika Williams, A/K/A Sharnice Williams, A/K/A Meek Williams, a United States Postal Service, USPS, mail carrier in Mount Vernon, New York, was arrested for stealing credit cards, checks, and identities from the mail in order to carry out a scheme and conspiracy to fraudulently steal money from individuals and financial institutions. Tamika Babulal, along with her husband Joel Babulal, A/K/A Joel Nicole Babulal, were arrested this morning in Hempstead, New York. This morning and appeared this afternoon before U.S. Magistrate Judge Judith C. McCarthy. As alleged in the complaint, Tamika Babilal is a mail carrier who delivers mail to and from residents and businesses with mail going through the USPS Processing and Distribution Center in Mount Vernon, New York. She, however, did not perform the role entrusted to her and instead used her position to steal mail in furtherance of a fraud and identity theft scheme aimed at illicitly benefiting herself and her co-conspirators, including Joel Babilal. Tamika Babilal's alleged actions include stealing checks mailed from victims, stealing credit cards mailed to victims and then attempting to use those cards for personal gain, depositing altered checks that were stolen from victims throughout the U.S. into personal financial accounts, and coordinating with co-conspirators to obtain the personal identifying information of victims she targeted on her mail route, so that she and her co-conspirators could open fraudulent accounts in the victims' names. As detailed in the complaint, the evidence obtained during the course of law enforcement's investigation includes photographs from Tamika Babilal's cloud storage account connected to her phone, emails, and telephone calls she made to financial institutions, fraudulent credit card applications, and messages between her and her co-conspirators in furtherance of their fraud scheme and conspiracy. Joel Babilal is alleged to have participated in the conspiracy. When law enforcement conducted a search of Tamika Babilal and Joel Babilal's residence this morning, officers recovered, among other things, dozens of credit cards and checks in other people's names, including washed checks, several bundles of undelivered mail, including from financial institutions, destined for addresses on Tamika Babilal's mail route in Mount Vernon, New York, several social security cards and tax documents in other people's names, and 17 phones, including phones alleged to have been used in the fraud scheme and conspiracy. As a result of these allegations, Tamika Babilal's employment with USPS will be suspended indefinitely pending resolution of these charges. Tamika Babilal, 36, of Hempstead, New York, is charged with one count of theft of mail by a postal worker, which carries a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. One count each of bank fraud and conspiracy to commit wire and bank fraud, each of which carries a maximum sentence of 30 years in prison, and one count of aggravated identity theft, which carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 2 years in prison. Joel Babilal, 36, of Hempstead, New York, is charged with one count of conspiracy to commit wire and bank fraud, which carries a maximum sentence of 30 years in prison. The mandatory minimum and maximum potential sentences in this case are prescribed by Congress and provided here for informational purposes only, as any sentencing of the defendants will be determined by a judge.
Equality before the law, also known as equality under the law. Equality in the eyes of the law, legal equality, or legal egalitarianism, is the principle that all people must be equally protected by the law. The rule of law is a political ideal that all citizens and institutions within a country, state, or community are accountable to the same laws, including lawmakers and leaders. It is sometimes stated simply as no one is above the law.